Okay, welcome to Cheap Seats here on YouTube. And today, honestly, with March Madness bracket getting announced yesterday, everything that's going on in college basketball, I figured it was the best thing to do was just jump right into another mock, get another mock draft in before the 2026 March Madness begins. What a wild time of year. We're going to be using the Fanspo mock draft simulator. We're going to do a mock lottery as well. And let's just honestly jump right back in because I'm pumped about this. So, we're up on Fanspo here, and let's get this going. Let's simulate a lottery here, and let's see who ends up with the top pick. And Atlanta jumps to the top. Here we go. Atlanta, Utah, Sacramento, Indiana, Washington gets the top five. Washington, Brooklyn, Indiana all slide. Atlanta with the big jump. That Derek Queen trade looks worse and worse every second with results like this. Utah jumps big, which is good for them. They need it. And yeah, let's use this in the mock draft. And we're doing the full first round. We're going to use the no ceilings one because I know it was just updated, and hopefully they've got, like last time, there was no Tyler Tanner and a few other guys. Let's just jump right into that. So with the first pick, the Atlanta Hawks. Now, when we're talking about the Atlanta Hawks roster, we have to understand that Nikhil Alexander, Alexander Walker, Dyson Daniels in the backcourt. CJ is going to be gone in the offseason. They've got athletic wings. Obviously there's no center at the top of this draft. I know some people might think that Cam Boozer ends up being a center. I don't view him like that. I think that the Atlanta Hawks getting the number one pick is probably just cut and dry one of the easiest outcomes for a number one pick. I think they need a guy who can play on ball, he can play off ball, somebody that can really, really space the floor aggressively, another guy that gives them length. And I think Darren Peterson's the guy. I know people are all over AJ DeBanster right now. I know Darren Peterson's had like an up and down year in terms of health and other stuff. But when this kid's on, he is remarkable. I still think he's the best future prospect in the class between the mix of offense and defense. With the first overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks select Darren Peterson. Here we go. Number two, the Utah Jazz. You know what? At the end of the day, they've got a really nice core, right? Like, I don't think they necessarily have the core that's going to win them a title yet. I think they have some defensive questions. Are they going to be able to keep Walker Kessler? I think they will be able to. Kessler, Jaren Jackson Jr., with that floor spacing, how he likes to play, having a big man like Kessler next to him makes a lot of sense. Laurie Markin, Ace Bailey, Keontae George is there. Cody Williams with, 34 points or whatever it was last night. Obviously, nobody was in the lineup. He was taking all the shots. He was getting all the offensive usage. Even guys like Senspot and Collier, they've got a lot of projectable bodies. In a perfect world, I think that Darren Peterson would have been the guy that they want. Um, the question is, when you look at this group of prospects, who fits day one? I think that prior to the Jaren Jackson trade, Cam Boozer would have made a lot of sense. After getting Jaren, he's got all that money left on the books. I hope they bring back Kessler because, Boozer's not really a center. Like, he'll be able to play small ball minutes at the five here and there. But I just think make this easy on yourself. Get that super athlete on the wing. Get that guy who's going to be able to go out and really, really just attack the paint and have that massive upside. He's going to BYU. It already makes sense. I know they'd love another guard. I know some people, have been shouting. I've seen some fans shouting that this is where Darius Acuff goes. We'll get into the Darius Acuff stuff as we go here. I'm not as big on. I don't want to say not as big on Acuff as some people. There's just concerns, right? But with the second overall pick, I think AJ DeBance is the guy. Utah grabs a good one, and this is such a fun player to add to this mix with that level of athleticism, that level of ability to get downhill and just go. Sacramento Kings. Again, we're in an interesting situation here where I think that they would like the upside athlete. Caleb Wilson's sitting there. You know, they have had an interesting history of drafting Duke players in the top three. Let's just be real about it. Caleb Wilson's an unbelievable prospect. Is he a center long term? We'll see. I think that there's a possibility he ends up playing some five. I just don't think that at this point, even though the fit might be a little bit funky between Sabonis and Boozer, I think Sabonis gets moved in the offseason anyways. I think Cam Boozer is the guy here. I've heard so many people try to shit on who he is as a player. I've seen so many people try to talk about what he can't do. I'll tell you what he can do. Right? He could score the damn basketball. I know that some guys, elite rim protectors, guys with like extraordinary length and athleticism, are going to give him problems. He's going to have to develop a little bit more craft around the rim than he has right now because the bullying is going to work to an extent, but it's not going to be like a fix all at the NBA level. He is a really good team defender. He's not going to be able to defend point of attack, really. He can switch and he can get to the level and hard hedge and do all that stuff to a degree. He's a great communicator on the court. I think his defensive communication is one of his most underrated traits. He is an unbelievable passer. And I think at the NBA level, you're going to really, really see exactly what he can do as a passer. And he's going to be able to step into those Sabonis like sets and really, really operate a lot of the same play formations in a different way as a little bit more of an offensive weapon than Sabonis would in terms of being able to rip and go and do some of those things. I think Cam Boozer fits in. I think Cam Boozer will push them to move Domantas Sabonis. I think they'll try to attack the center market in a different way. And I think pairing Cam Boozer and Keegan Murray and all these guys, at least gives them some upside. We'll be interested to see about Cam Boozer's measurements coming out and whatnot. But with the third overall pick, the Sacramento Kings select Cameron Boozer, and they're happy to do it. Fourth, Indiana Pacers. So the Pacers are in an interesting situation here where, they just acquired Zubats. They've got their center. They've got Siakam locked up long term. They've got Halliburton and Nemhard at the on the perimeter. The three, they've got awesome players at the three. Like I think Neesmith is fantastic. Obviously, they have a level of faith in Jarris Walker. I don't know how much faith that is at this point, but they do have a level of faith in Jarris Walker. Ideally, they want an athletic three man. I think that would be their goal, is a really, really athletic wing or a guy who can really space the floor and figure out a lot of those things. It's hard to pass up Caleb Wilson in this spot. I think if the Indiana Pacers actually get to this spot, I think they look to trade out of this spot. Caleb Wilson's not going to play the three. Do you go ultra big, especially with the level of athleticism that he has and how well Pascal Siakam shot the ball this year? Do you go ultra big and just go with Caleb Wilson, see if you can run some minutes at the 3-4-5? He can play with Siakam. He can play with Zubats. I think he makes a lot of sense. There is that like initial thought of like a guy like Keaton Wagler fits in really, really well with what they do. Guys like Mikal Brown Jr. being able to play in transition like they do. I just think that Caleb Wilson gives them the best opportunity to play transition offense and transition defense, give them some paint support, some length and some athleticism over there. I think that when you look at a tier list, I have the top three guys, the top three guys. And then I do have Caleb Wilson in a tier of his own, and I'm not going to break tier here. I think that he fits well enough. I think they would prefer to have other things. I think there's a possibility they would definitely look to trade for a high level three. But Caleb Wilson to the Indiana Pacers, just add another weapon, another defensive weapon, especially. I know sometimes the defense can be a little up and down with Caleb. But as an overall, like I think his defensive potential is silly good. The awareness needs to improve. His positioning needs to improve. But you can't teach traits, and the kid's got damn traits. Washington Wizards up at 5. A lot of people that are a fan of like big name players loved what they did at the trade deadline, and I know they acquired two all-star level players in Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I don't personally love that. I know they're wanting to win and they're wanting to step up into that realm of kind of like it's time to go, it's time to get some shit done. Bub Carrington's a backup point guard. Keyshawn George is fun. Will Riley's fun. I think they got lots of guys that can play. Bilal Coulibaly as a defensive guy and a rim attack guy. I get it. Trey Johnson's shown a ton of potential. Their wings, Trey Johnson's a shooter that can't attack the rim at a very high level. Does Wagler or Brown fit into what they're doing? Kingston Flemings is a hyper on-ball guard. If they're going to re-sign Trae Young, does that make sense? Darius Acuff is a hyper on-ball guard. Some people are talking about his ability to play off-ball. You can't play him and Trae Young together. I just don't think that makes any damn sense. I am not a big believer in Nate Ammon. It's not a guy that I love. I think the more I look at this board, the more it's likely that they would try to move out of this spot, because I really genuinely don't love the fit of any of the top prospects with them, especially since they just traded for these guys. Braden Burries is kind of intriguing here, but that's like a pretty large jump in terms of prospect values. I just don't have him in that same group. Jaden Quaintance, if he wasn't hurt, could make a ton of sense here as well. But I think at the end of the day, they want somebody that can play off ball, can space the floor, has a little bit of length, and despite the fact that I think that Kingston Flemings is the best prospect of this group, him and Trae Young are just impossibly bad pairing together. I don't love the Keaton Wagler pairing with Trey Johnson, but amongst the options that we have, and not trying to break tier too aggressively, I think Keaton Wagler's the pick here. So Keaton Wagler going at 5 to the Washington Wizards. And, like Wagler's fantastic. The jump shooting's legitimate. The perimeter shot creation is legitimate. The concerns for him is that I do really view him as an off-ball guard. I do. There's a lot of the concerns that I'm going to list. I had the exact, and you can watch my breakdowns of Trey Johnson from last year's draft. I had him lower than consensus. I had him ranked at 11. And the big reason why I had him ranked at 11 was at the time he was really insistent of being an on-ball guy. I didn't see him as an on-ball player. I saw him as a pure off-ball guard. As an off-ball guard, I think his potential is great, but it's a lot of the same stuff as Wagler. It's an inability to kind of attack the rim and create separation because you don't have elite athleticism. I think some of the rim finishing stuff, although in college has been fine, I think at the NBA level it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to get to those looks. The length is good, but like I said, the handle is good, but it's hard for him to create separation. I think he is truly an off-ball guy. I think he'll be able to play very functionally as an off-ball guy. Him and Trey Johnson do kind of step on each other a little bit, but Wagler's got enough length where he can be positionally versatile. I think Trey Johnson can be a little bit positionally versatile a little bit. Don't love any of these fits, but I'm going to go with Keaton Wagler at 5 to the Washington Wizards. The Brooklyn Nets need everything. Let's just be real. They drafted 19 point guards. I don't really view any of them as long-term point guards. Yegor to me is a point forward at best. I think Porter, if they end up keeping him, kind of plays the 3. Claxton, if they end up keeping him, as a center they can kind of trust. Love Day'Ron Sharpe. Nolan Traore to me is just a backup guard. Right, I like some of the stuff he's done. I think that there's defensive potential there long term. I think that he's shown the ability to shoot the ball in flashes. Obviously, it's in flashes though. It's very inconsistent, right? Young player. Saroff as a kind of on off ball guy, like the Ginobili comparisons to me were always silly. I was hyper low on Ben Saroff in general. Drake Powell again as a perimeter defender, I do like. We need to see a lot more. That's very very raw. Danny Wolf's not really my guy. I was lower on Danny Wolf than consensus last year as well. But they've got players I like. But I think the one thing they need, and they need at a high level, because the guards that they have on their roster, like Yegor, if you want to call him a guard, they have an inability of collapsing the paint. If you can't collapse the paint at the NBA level, you're screwed. They play a hyper switch based defense. So all the people that are like Darius Acuff, get Darius Acuff there, get Darius Acuff there. Darius Acuff, and this is not to be rude to Darius Acuff, his offensive game is genuinely phenomenal. I've always compared him to Stephon Marbury since I watched him in high school. Stephon Marbury to me really physically is the comp, right? Darius Acuff shoots the shit out of the ball, but he's 38% from 2. The rim finishing is really rough. He's not a hyper athlete. He requires ball screens to get loose. I think he can play off ball a little bit, but definitely not on the defensive end. He walks into the NBA probably, and this is not hyperbole, he walks into the NBA probably as the worst defensive player in professional basketball. Like in the league next year, he will be the worst defender in the NBA. It's not just even like an effort thing. It's a physicality thing. It's a lateral mobility thing. It's a flexibility thing. I love what he does on the offensive side of the ball, but he is so poor defensively. He has to become so generationally elite on the offensive end to be an effective winning player. and the rim collapsing, like the paint collapse, paint touch rates are just like, it's really, really tough for him to be that guy. I think Kingston Flemings with the shooters around him, with Yegor's shooting is real, and with Porter and these guys, I think his ability to just get downhill, be a super athlete, hold up and switch on the defensive side of the court too, because he gets ball watchy. The defense has a lot of rough patches in it, but he has a potential to be a really damn good defender. And I think Jordi Fernandez's switch heavy scream, ultra aggressive system of defense plays really well into Kingston Flemings. I think Kingston Flemings, who I do have as the number 5 rated player in my draft, goes to the Brooklyn Nets and gives them a brand new look and a whole different energy than they have available on their roster right now. So I think that is an absolute steal. I think it's a perfect fit for them, and I think Kingston Flemings could be phenomenal for them. The Dallas Mavericks. You've got Kyrie, hypothetically. You've got the group of bigs that you have between Cooper Flag being that 3-4. You've got Gafford and Derek Lively and these guys at the 5 spot. I think you got the 5 guys. Like, Gafford's defense, not phenomenal. Lively, it's still developmental when he's on the floor. But I think there's a long-term projectability of defense. PJ Washington's defense this year hasn't been as good, but over the last couple of years has actually been quite good over there. Najee Marshall's a damn good defender. Max Christie, holds up his end on the defensive end as well. I think that this is a spot where you can have a lead guard that can really create, really space the floor, but you need somebody that can also play off of Kyrie Irving. And Darius Acuff, having Kyrie and Acuff in a backcourt, it's super fun. Don't get me wrong. It would be between Kyrie and Acuff and Cooper Flag, it might be the most exciting offensive team in basketball at that point. But playing off ball with Kyrie and those two trying to be your perimeter point of attack guys, I just think you're asking for trouble. And that's not even shitting on Kyrie. Kyrie's actually turned into a better defender, but better as an off-ball defender. To me, Mikal Brown Jr., who I do not think is as good of a prospect as Darius Acuff, like their ceilings, I think the Acuff ceiling is higher. The length, the shot making, his ability to play the 1 or the 2, because I think that Mikal Brown really can genuinely play the 2. I think in some circumstances as a second side creator, and especially as a second side creator in terms of the passing game, because there's just some really high level passing reads there as well. I think Mikal Brown plays more seamlessly next to a Kyrie Irving and next to a Cooper Flag, who also needs some on ball usage, than Darius Acuff does. So with the 7th overall pick, the Dallas Mavericks select Mikal Brown Jr., which I did not think that I would have Mikal Brown going that early in this draft. I'm not going to lie to you. Ja Morant, Memphis Grizzlies, they've got 900 bodies. They've got a lot of guards. I think they've got a lot of guards that can play the 1 or the 2. Ty Jerome can play both guard spots. Cedric Howard's more of a 2-3. Walter Clayton can play the 1, or, he's developing his ability to play the 2 even though he's small. Cam Spencer's just a good basketball player. He's smart, he's effective, he's feisty defensively, even though it's not overly effective defensively. Great shooter as well. You're going to run, Scottie Pippen Jr.'s there as well. That's more of just a straight 1 because of the size stuff, right? Jemai Meshack, who was one of my favorite players in last year's draft as well, just to give Jemai Meshack a shout out. Like I said, him and Colin Murray Boyles were the 2 players that I rated as the 2 best defenders in last year's draft class. But with all that said, I think Ja has moved. I think they do consolidate some of their pieces. Despite the fact that they could use another big, I just don't see the big at this point in the draft to jump on, right? Yaxel is a 4. Like, he's a legit 4. I think it's going to be hard for Yax to play the 5 in the NBA. Like, he will be able to do it in spot minutes, but not full time. At 8, they get a creator. They get somebody that they can replace Ja with. If they can get a big man piece or another wing piece or whatever for Ja Morant, that would be awesome. They save some money, and Darius Acuff is the point guard of the future with a team and a style of play that I think can insulate some of the defensive flaws that he has. I think Darius Acuff being next to Cedric Cower to being next to Jalen Wells and Zach Edey as a backline defender. I think things are set up really perfectly for Darius Acuff and his game to get launched to the next level, being able to hide some of the deficiencies that he has on ball because Cedric Cower could be your primary point of attack guy. You can kind of hide Darius Acuff off ball a little bit. I think he's physically strong enough, despite being undersized, to be able to play against some bigger bodies. So I think he can hold up a little bit better there. It's not going to be pretty on the defensive end, but man, the offense is electric. The offense is genuinely electric, and I think this kid's going to be special on that end of the floor. Is he going to be a winning basketball player? Is it going to be a guy that you can play that style in the playoffs and have him on the playoffs or on the floor in the playoffs for 35 minutes a game? We'll find out, because guys do develop some defensive awareness and some defensive skills occasionally, but he has a long way to go to even get to a bad defender, right? So Darius Acuff, though, offensively, absolute rocket, and the Memphis Grizzlies select him with the 8th pick in the draft, which is, realistically on a skill level basis, an absolute steal. The Chicago Bulls, do we just go skinny small forward, power forward, since like that's kind of what they do every year, right? Is that where we're going with? Are we just going to continue the skinny, combo forwards? They it seems like that's their type. You just pair him with Modest and Essengay, and I do still believe that Essengay's potential is very, very, very good. I just wonder about the fit with Modest, and Modest is so scheme specific in terms of what he can and can't do on the floor. The Chicago Bulls, they've also got about 1 million guards on their roster right now. They've got about 1 million guys that need the ball in their hands to be successful. I think they're going to have to clear the deck significantly at guard positions. I think Josh Giddey's a good fit for them, but like they're going to be losing Sexton most likely. They're probably going to be losing Anfernee Simons. We'll see if they end up keeping Jaden Ivey. I imagine they will. They've got some fun pieces. Even guys like Leonard Miller, man. Leonard Miller's a really, really fun basketball player. I don't think he's like a long-term starter or anything, but that's like a really fun piece coming off the bench. What do they need? The same thing they've needed for damn ever, which is they need a legitimate center. The problem is that where we are in the draft, there really isn't one unless you go hunting for potential. And this is where an idea like Jaden Quaintance becomes very fun. Or do they believe that with all of their run and jump athletes on the perimeter, do they believe with Modest's shot blocking and potentially Essengay's shot blocking and the length of Giddey at the perimeter, do they believe they can go with an undersized center like a guy like Koa Pete, who I'm not particularly high on in that role? Are they going to, reach on... Like, wouldn't it be crazy if like a guy like, Patrick Gamba or Ade Mara went this high? I don't think anybody from that class is going to be able to jump this high necessarily. I'll say this right now, not at 9, but Mo Krivos, I think is just every time I watch Krivos play, I just think it becomes more and more tantalizing about what he can potentially do. Do they believe that Yaxel Landenborg can play these spots? I'm not sure. I think that they're more inclined to try to go with a big. I don't think there's a big at this point of the draft. It would be very, very interesting to see if they would trade down as well from this point and try to collect more assets. I think that's a definite possibility. If they're going to lose these perimeter guards, like right now, Isaac Okoro is in a spot where like Isaac Okoro is probably playing some real minutes, and he's been fine enough. But there are guys like Braden Burries who can do the on-off ball thing. I think that the defense is potentially legitimate. Like there are problems there still. Like don't get me wrong, but I think he is somebody that can play shooting guard next to Josh Giddey. Like Giddey as the primary on-ball guy, I think makes a lot of sense with him. There's that Chicago Bulls. Would they reach on Chris Sinek? I'm not a big Sinek guy, but I understand the potential. Again, another skinny, tall guy. They love that mix, and a guy who can potentially shoot it long term. Like, do they just reach and get their guy and reach on Sinek and put him as the number 9 pick? I would hope they don't. Nate Ament's there. Like, he does kind of fit them, but I just, positionally, it's such a hard thing to do. I think that they go with Braden Burries. That's where I think they go. I think they just grab. It's tough. They have so many. It really depends on if they were to bring back an Anthony Simons, or if they were to bring back any of the guards they just got. Quaintance gives them something they don't have. It's not like they're trying to win right now. Jaden Quaintance would give them something they don't have, which is like a real potential defensive identity. But the more I think about it, like, so I have Chris Sinak right now ranked like in the like early to mid 20s. To me, he just screams Chicago Bulls draft pick. I think he just screams Bulls draft pick. And like, let's be real, in the conference tournament, he looked a lot better. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go Chris Sinak at 9, which is crazy because like in my mind I had him going 25, 27 in this draft. I just think that they really genuinely need a center. I don't know if he even is physically capable of playing that down the line. You know, this is the hardest pick of the draft so far because they could just go, you know what? Let's get an undersized center. Let's roll with that and go undersized center. Modest can block shots, give that backside support. Maybe they do view a guy like Yaxel Lendeborg as that answer. It's just I have a hard time seeing Yaxel Lendeborg as that answer. I think even Koa Pete, like, some people may love what Koa Pete does, and he definitely does have that back to the basket game in space that they don't really play in Chicago. But I certainly don't love the fit of that pick necessarily. You know what? Let's not overthink this too much because I spent a lot of time on the Chicago Bulls already. They're gonna not bring back all of those guards. I think at the end of the day, shooting and some scoring creation is essential for them anyways. I think Braden Burries has big time potential, and I think they would go Braden Burries here and just get that guy. Just go that route. Kid can score the basketball. I think there's some defense there along the way. There's no center that is valuable enough at that spot. Again, could they trade back? Yeah. But if you're looking for a center, Yaxel's not a center. I think he's going to measure shorter than he's listed. Quaintance, it's a huge risk at 9. I don't even have an issue with the team selecting him in the lottery. If there's a team that can let him come along slowly and develop and heal and get healthy, I just don't think the Chicago Bulls are that team for him. I think Braden Burries just makes a lot more sense. Right, somebody that can come in, play, still has that high end upside, but there's a lot of stuff there. The Milwaukee Bucks at 10. I'm guessing they trade Giannis. I I hate their roster. I think that they could definitely use a wing. Nate Ament sitting there. Do I know what Nate Ament does at an NBA level? Inconsistent shooter, inconsistent physicality. A better than expected rebounder. I'll give him that. Like, Nate Ament rebounds the basketball better than I thought he would. The offensive performance stuff is really, really weird. It's just the jump shot's so inconsistent. His ability to get to the rim is so inconsistent. There's strength stuff, but the upside is big. I am lower on him on my board right now. I think I would have Nate Ament somewhere at like 18 or 19 last time I looked at it. I have to double check that, but it's definitely not near 10. But I think at the end of the day, the Milwaukee Bucks want that upside play. Having that length is nice. It's another guy that can space the floor. If you trade Giannis for other pieces, he doesn't hinder you there. If you keep Giannis's downhill physicality, Nate Ament playing off them actually makes some sense. So with the 10th pick, let's just go Nate Ament to the Milwaukee Bucks, which, like, on paper, like, in my mind, Nate Ament kind of fits the Milwaukee Bucks thing. I don't know why that is, but it is that way, and we're going to go with that. The Portland Trailblazers at 11, a roster I love. Decisions they got to make. They need more. Donovan Clingan has taken such a massive jump this year. I just think he's potentially special. I think their guard spot is really, at this point, overcrowded. I think they could use a little bit more on the wing, but they have fun players, right? Like Denny Avdia is there. Obviously, Jeremy Grant's not a long-term piece for them. If they can move off Jeremy Grant, they would. But Avdia on the wing, I think Shaden Sharp is still wing potential. Vit Krejci, who they just signed, is an awesome shooter. Tumani Kamara's over there, and he can play the 3-4. So I think what they're looking for here is like a guy that can come in and offer positional versatility, can fit with a bunch of different lineups, and could do a lot of different things for you between playing both forward spots, having enough size in minutes, maybe even sliding and playing a backup five, depending on where Robert Williams is and everything else. I think there are guys that can do that. I think the guy that makes the most sense to do that right away today is Yaxel Lendeborg. I have Lendeborg lower than this. I'm not a believer in the jump shot necessarily. He does offer them a level of physicality though that they clearly do like with the Drew Holidays and Denny Avdia and how he plays, and their big men who are obviously so dynamically strong. I think Yaxel Lendeborg as an older, more experienced guy. Obviously, I think Portland's going to be looking to make a jump next year. I don't think they're going to look for a long-term prospect. I think they're going to look for a guy that can play. And despite the fact that I have this player rated lower than a lot of people, I think that Yaxel Lendeborg does fit really well here, and we're going to go with him as the 11th pick to the Portland Trailblazers. The Golden State Warriors at 12. What is their roster going to be? Obviously, Steph's going to be there. We'll see what happens with Jimmy and his recovery. We'll see if they bring back Kristaps. We'll see what trades they have. I don't think, like Bojemski, if the rumors are true that he's going to be looking for $39 million or whatever, that's silly. That's not in the future for them. There's a pick that is just so Warriors coded right now that it's hard to ignore. Once again, this is a player who I am not overly high on. As a guy who loves the little stuff and loves the defensive side of the court and all of those defensive connective skills, Bennett Sturts is not a player I love. I think that Bennett Sturts, there's a lot of ways that he reminds me of Goran Dragic. That's not to say he's the same player or anything, obviously handedness and stuff, but Bennett Sturts is a super fun guy in terms of his ability to relocate. Obviously, this year playing for Iowa, everything was on ball. Like, he very rarely got possessions off ball, so he didn't get to show what he could do off ball. I think he's a legit 6'4". We'll see what those measurements come in at, but like I don't think he's necessarily a short guy. The way he's going to relocate off ball, the way he can shoot it, how smart he is on the offensive end, the relocations are such big things because the Golden State Warriors require you to relocate at a high level. It's just like the number one thing that they identify in players. You have to be smart enough to relocate, and that's where guys like Jonathan Kuminga have really struggled in that system to like work within the system and not just be a transition player, is their inability to kind of figure out relocations. Bennett Sturts just feels like a Warriors player to me. I think that pairing him with Steph Curry in terms of the long term, seeing how he can adapt to the NBA game, I just think Bennett Sturts makes a lot of sense here. And I'm going to take Bennett Sturts, like I said, who I have ranked around 20 at the 12th pick, because I just think that the fit just makes too much sense. So the Golden State Warriors go with Bennett Sturts, who's having an incredible year, by the way. A little bit older, but he just fits. 13th pick, Charlotte Hornets, who I think will be higher than this come playoff time. Let's just be real. Charles Lee's system, that Joe Mazzulla system, lots of threes. They like athletes. Obviously, Con Knippel's come in and just kind of settled that whole team down. I think that Diabate and Kalkbrenner is a really fun combination at the big man spot. I can't stand Miles Bridges as a human being, but like he fits really well with this scheme and these players. Could they use a little more secondary ball handling? Well, we'll see what happens with Kobe White. If Kobe White stays, then they're probably fine there. I'm a big believer in Tijan Salon. Obviously he showed like pretty significant growth this year in a limited role. I think Zion James is a really good player. But like I think they could use something on the wing, something a little bit more dynamic. They like their athletes on the wing. And there are guys like Cam Carr sitting there. I know this is a bit early for Cam Carr, who would just make a lot of sense. There are guys like Joshua Jefferson, who's not the high level athlete, but if you're looking at Miles Bridges, 2 years left in that contract, and Joshua Jefferson's ability to space the floor a little bit, if you believe in that, have positional versatility, really pass the shit out of the basketball. I think that could be a lot of fun for them. I think guys like Amari Allen could make a lot of sense here, and what Amari Allen does could be super fun in this system. Would a hybrid 4-5 make sense for them? Would a guy like Jaden Quaintance, who can, like I said, you can take him and bring him along slowly and do all of those things, would that make sense? It's another really tough team because, again, I think Diabate is really good, bit undersized. I think Kalkbrenner is going to be just like a super high-end backup center in the league. But a guy like Jaden Quaintance has that potential to be a game changer on the defensive end. We'll see what the play finishing ends up being. But just a really damn good basketball player. He has the potential to be a really damn good basketball player. Is there a guy like Chris Senak that they look at him and they go, ooh, that's a toy we could play with? Amari Allen jumping up. I feel like there's somebody that's not Abuka Corey. Corey would be fun here. There's a bunch of guys that would be super fun. Momcilovic. Can you imagine putting Milan Momcilovic in this system? I would never pick him. I'm just more looking for the sake of looking. Like I said, secondary ball handling. Do they keep Kobe White? Do they decide to invest their money in there? They might. Do they believe in their center tandem long term? They might. Do they want their floor spacing though? Abso-friggin-lutely they do. They want their guys to be able to space the floor. They want guys to be able to play in transition and play at pace. Braylon Mullins just kind of does everything they like. I know they have Miller and Knipple there already. I know that they have bodies there. I just think in terms of like a guy coming off the bench being able to play in any lineup construction, I think he's a dude that can play with any single one of those players and be successful, right? There are better players on the board, I believe, right now. I believe there are better basketball players on the board. It's just Phylon doesn't fit as an on-ball pick-and-roll ball handler. Christian Anderson, same thing. I don't think that's a fit. Koa Pete doesn't space the floor. I don't think they're going to invest in somebody that can't space the floor. Thomas Hawk. Actually, you know what? Thomas Hawk's kind of an interesting one here. I think Thomas Hawk could actually make a decent amount of sense being able to play the 3-4. It's a little early on my board for him. It's a little early. Do you believe in the 3-point shooting? I'm not totally sold on the 3-ball. There's a few guys like that I'm not totally sold on their ability to shoot the basketball. And that does make it kind of challenging to fully believe in that as a fit. It's tricky, man, because there's a lot of potential guys here. There's also the huge potential guys like Sinek. They're just sitting there. I think Braylon Mullins is the guy. I think that versatility, being able to play those different spots, I think he's going to defend at a fairly real level. You can kind of play him all around the roster. I think he fits with everybody. Braylon Mullins, don't overthink it. You're just getting a damn good basketball player. And let's be real, it's somebody that can step into a rotation, play the 2, play the 3, give you a little bit of versatility. He's probably not going to get big minutes right away, but you're adding an excellent ball player to your program, and I think at the end of the day, that's really what you're looking for. The San Antonio Spurs at 14. Now, this is where it gets interesting because this is a team that can take a physical, down low, big body that does all the right things, but doesn't necessarily have, the floor spacing or like the pure athleticism or everything else. You've got your guards. They're definitely not picking a guard. I think that, with Carter Bryant, and I do believe that Champagny is a damn good basketball player. I think that at center with, obviously Victor being able to play kind of the 4 and the 5, but predominantly a center. Cornette's there for a couple more years. They've got bodies there. I think they're looking for that hybrid forward. I think just a hybrid forward, somebody that can play with physicality, even somebody that can play small ball five a little bit, do a bunch of those things. I don't think he necessarily has to be a floor spacer playing with Wemby. I think that Koa Pete, with the kind of winning, credentials he has in his game, can make a lot of sense here. I think Morez Johnson could be super fun. Like Wemby's ability to space the floor gives them so many options. Thomas Hawk is just another dude that I just think makes a shit ton of sense here because he does a little bit of everything, right? Do they just go straight potential and go, you know what? This guy, whoever we draft, ain't playing anyways day one. They're not playing. Like let's just be absolutely real about it. Whoever they pick is not going to be in the rotation day one. This is a long-term draft pick at the end of the day. And Chris Sinak Jr. is sitting there as a long-term prospect who can just do so many of the things they want you to do. Josh Jefferson, I tell you, if it wasn't the 14th pick, there'd be some real consideration to Josh Jefferson here. I would have no problem going up and picking Joshua Jefferson this high. I think that the things he does make it so easy to just love that player. But I think with what they need, I think it really comes down to Thomas Hawk, Koa Pete. I think those would be the kind of the top two names. Like I love Cam Carr. I just don't know if somebody's gonna, or Chris Sinak. You know what? I'm doing it. I think Chris Sinak's the pick here. I think they go for the potential play. He's long as hell. There's the potential to defend. There's the potential to rebound. There's potential to space the floor. Like if it all clicks, it's kind of like the Carter Bryant pick where it's like, yeah, production's not there, but that potential, if it hits the right way and in that place with those players and the kind of vibe they have going around the work level that they put in, I think Chris Sinak could potentially explode. And I'm not even particularly high on Chris Sinak, but yeah, 15 I think is the easiest pick so far in the draft. I think it's just Jaden Quaintance, right? Like they might have to lose iHeart at some point here. They might need to lose J. Will at some point here. They've got Sorber. Who knows how the health is there? They've got 139 guys on their roster. I think they've got ball handlers and shooters coming out their ass. I think they need more center depth. I don't know where they're at with Sorber. I think having a guy like Quaintance, they've shown the last 2 years that they're willing to park a player for a year on a roster spot to let them get fully healthy. I think Jaden Quaintance, with the way that he plays defense, fits in so well with the Wallace, Caruso, Dorts of the world who just want to physically batter you. I think Jaden Quaintance is the easiest pick in the draft so far. I'm so high on him because of the defensive side. I understand the health questions. I understand the offensive questions, but Jaden Quaintance is an absolute beast. And I think this is the easiest pick in the entire first round so far. I think that Oklahoma City is the perfect team to pick him. Let him sit, let him grow, let him heal, let him develop. And here's the kicker. With the 16th pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder are back on the clock. And what do? Do they go for what do they like? Dribble, pass, shoot? High-end defenders. That's what they look for. They also like some size. Guard spots? I don't think they'd go for another, point guard, let's say, necessarily, because they do have ball handlers. I know they don't I think they do believe in Topic. So I don't think go that route. A big hybrid forward who has the ability to defend, has the ability to step out, plays physical, plays tough, wants to get into your shit, does all of those things at a high rate. A guy like Karim Lopez doesn't need to come in and play right now. I'm not a Karim Lopez guy, though, so I'm not going to do that. Tunde Yesufu, is this early for Tunde? Yeah, absolutely it is. Could he be a guy that you sit for a year, let him learn and grow and kind of adapt to the NBA game, and he could pop off? Abso-friggin-lutely he could. Or do they just go for an older guy who can dribble, pass, not really shoot? There's big men on the board, like guys like a Damara, depending on what happens in their offseason. I think, what, now that I look at it, I just think that Thomas Hawk makes a lot of sense. Morez Johnson, fits a lot of the things they do. I think Dalen Swain to a degree fits. I don't think that the defense is as good as some people think it is. It's a really high risk defense. I think he cheats a lot. I think he's going to put up box score numbers, but kind of get blown up from time to time. I think Thomas Hawk makes sense. I think this is the type of risk they can take on a kind of Swiss Army knife forward, and I think that's the direction they go. They got the high potential guy in Quaintance. I think they got the rock solid guy that can do a little bit of everything in Hawk, and yeah, that's where we're at. The Miami Heat, again, another roster in flux. They've got guys like, let's see what happens with Norm Powell. Davion Mitchell's there still. Hawkes. They drafted Yakashonis. I think Drew Smith is a nice player. Obviously they've got Hero and Bam and these guys. We'll see if there's a consolidation trade in their future. What do they like? They like guards that can really shoot it from the outside. I don't think right now, I think Tyler Hero is more of an off-ball guy. I think he can play on ball. I think that they want an off or an on-ball guard. If they're going to choose an on-ball guy, I think it has to be an on-ball guard. They have to be able to space the floor. I think Hero's big enough you can play him with a smaller guy. I think they're looking for a potential high-end play. Do they, the only other thing is do they fully believe in Khalil Ware? Are they going to make a trade around that? Do they just deal this pick at the end of the day? I think there's a really good chance that by the time we get to draft time that the Miami Heat are not picking with this draft pick. I think this draft pick gets dealt for them to acquire a big name guy because that's the way that they prefer to do things. But with the names that are on the board, who's available? LeBaron Philon's the highest rated guard in the draft right now. Not on my board, though, because I'm a huge believer in Christian Anderson. I think Christian Anderson has the potential to be a pesky defender, not a good defender, not a positive defender, because the size he is going to get picked on. But, man, he might be the best damn shooter in this whole draft. I think he can space the floor really beautifully for them. I think they have the defensive infrastructure to be able to insulate him a little bit. I think it gives them a little bit of the idea of that they can have the guard of the future if they do decide to move off of Hero. I think Christian Anderson's the pick here at 17. The Toronto Raptors at 18. So listen, obviously, Raptors fan, I'm rocking a Colin Murray Boyles jersey as we do this live. Would it be nice to go get another center? Yeah. Yeah, it would. Morez Johnson, I think that the fans would revolt at a certain point. He's another undersized center. People would hate it. I wouldn't hate it. Cam Carr on the perimeter might be one of my favorite players in this draft. I think he's going to be so fun. But the strength issues exist, and can he play right away? And maybe they'll be spooked by, Dick and Walter and the other kind of failures on their wing prospects. Obviously, those guys aren't cooked. Well, Dick, I've never had faith in, but, Walter shows flashes. There are guys like Amari Allen that could be super fun. I think Patrick Gamba could be super fun. I think a Dave Mara could be super fun in this spot. If I'm the Toronto Raptors, I need two things. I need a general of a backup point guard, preferably that can hold up a little bit defensively. I do believe in Jamal Shed, though. So despite the fact that LeBaron Philon is sitting here, and I love LeBaron Philon, I am going to draft a center. And I'm going to draft the center that I love more than any center in this draft. So, they put Pete there. They put Morez Johnson there. Hans Steinbeck, who I don't think is a center, is there. Day Mar is there. Patrick Gamba's there. And we're going to continue to go down the board. Josh Jefferson, not really a center. Flory Badunga, who I do really like. It's not him. I like Vasar. It's not Vasar. It's not Terrace Reed. It's not JT Toppin. It's Mo Krivas. Mount Krivas, as some people have tagged him. I just think he's special. I think that he is going to be I can't watch him and not think about Zubats. I think having that level of rim deterrent on this Raptors team is so valuable. I think that Jamal Shed playing backup point guard is a better thing than what they have in terms of big bodies. I think having that potential big body so they can line up match. This is not to say that you can't play CMB at center in certain matchups, or Barnes has played center in certain matchups, but I think it gives you that flexibility of having that second big body, right? Pirtle obviously has health concerns. I think Krivas can be like a damn good center in the future. I have him ranked extremely high, right around this draft spot currently for the Toronto Raptors. But I think Mo Krivas is the guy, and that is where I'm going to go for the Toronto Raptors. They get Mount Krivas, and they just get that. It's not the sexiest pick in the world. It's not the sexiest player in the world, but my God, is he effective. And I think with our defensive infrastructure, what he does on the defensive side of the ball, how he can finish on the offensive side of the ball, despite the fact that he only has one assist, I also think he's a good connective passer when he's put into those opportunities. But and such a critical piece of just such a dynamic Arizona Wildcats team. So the Toronto Raptors select Mo Krivas with the 18th pick. Memphis back up. They already drafted Darius Acuff, so they're already in a pretty good situation. Zach Edey likes to play next to, well, not likes to, more of a mobile guy, somebody that's switchable, gives them a lot of opportunities, has some fun movement skills, all those things. Despite the fact that some people are going to hate this pick because like this player is very divisive, I think you look at the four-man situation that they have with Aldama, who to me is more of a bench guy. Taylor Hendricks is a project. GG Jackson, hybrid forward, very ball dominant. We'll see what Omax is. To me, the idea of putting a guy like Josh Jefferson next to Acuff and Coward and Wells and Cam Spencer and all of these like either dynamic shooters or dynamic athletes, and then next to an absolute wall like Edey who can just cover up for so much, having his passing and playmaking and fun rim finishing and even some of the defensive stuff. I think he defends better than people give him credit for. I think Joshua Jefferson in that lineup just makes too much damn sense for me. I absolutely love the kid. Like Iowa State has turned in maybe I'm a Duke fan, but like has turned into maybe my favorite watch of the entire college season. Joshua Jefferson to the Memphis Grizzlies, and if I'm a Grizzlies fan, frig, this draft is great so far for them. The Hornets at 20, they already picked Braylon Mullins. I think they go winner here. I think they just go with a winner, go with a guy who's a pro. Is there a chance he can extend the floor a little bit? I think there's a possibility of it. And Koa Pete gets drafted here. Like he steps on the Tijon Salon draft pick a little bit. I was going to say maybe is the value on Phylon just too good not to draft Phylon? I know some people probably want like Dalen Swain here or something. I'm just not big on Swain. Like a Day Mara could be fun for them. Patrick Gomba could be fun for them. I just think that they believe in their centers at the end of the day. And I think, like I said, long term, I think Koa Pete, if Miles Bridges gets moved, I think that combination of Salon and Pete playing the four for you gives you a lot of different lineup versatility. I think Koa Pete also like can really defend in his way as a team defender when he wants to, and I think culture-wise, like he's just going to fit in because like from everything everybody knows about the kid, he's just a winner. He's an absolute dog. Not a guy that I'm in love with as a prospect. This is about where I have him on my board, so this fits. And they walk out of a draft with Braylon Mullins and Koa Pete adding to the core that they have. I think that that's a really good draft for them. Denver Nuggets at 21. There's not even any point talking about this. They've got Jamal Murray at the point. Backup point guard has been an issue for this team for years. I think that they need to be able to bring back Peyton Watson. I think they need to be able to do these things. I think they're stacked pretty much everywhere else. Obviously at center, depending on what happens with Valanciunas, everything else, like maybe, you maybe want to grab a guy like a Daymar or something because that could be fun. The reality is LeBaron Phylon coming in, being able to do the things he does, I think is a pretty damn natural fit, even though he's not necessarily the perfect player for this team. Like he doesn't do exactly what you want him to do. I just think LeBaron Phylon's a damn good player, and I think he'd make them better. And I think he could play minutes right away. So the Denver Nuggets select LeBaron Phylon with the 21st pick, which is great value on Phylon. Atlanta Hawks already picked Darren Peterson. They need a center. Obviously, they like centers who can move a little bit. They already have a Kongwu who's a bit undersized. I don't think that they would go for Merez Johnson here. I don't think Asa Newell is the long-term fix. everybody else has questions. But I think Henry Vesar's ability to spread the floor around a little bit, like Steinbach, I'm just like, I know people are gonna be pissed. Maybe I'm just not the biggest believer in Steinbach. Like I just don't believe in the process a lot of the times. I like the athletic tools, the jump shot. I don't really believe in the jump shot. Patrick Gomba would be really fun here. The injury stuff is really scary. Like the injury stuff, like he's out with a foot injury right now. This is the third time he's been out with foot injuries. Like he's had multiple foot problems in his career so far, like his college career and high school career. It's a real concern with the feet issues. I think Flory Badunga could be so fun here, but like I don't think there's a chance in hell that they would reach on him at this point. What do you think, Magoon Guath getting picked here? I don't see it happening. I think they'd want center though. I do really think the Henry Vesar fits really well here with his abilities. I'm just going to do it. Some people, again, this is a divisive pick. Some people will like it, some people won't. I think Patrick Gomba is a better basketball player than Henry Vesar. I just think that Vesar, with the size and his ability to space the floor, it just makes a ton of sense to them. Gomba's defense, though, Ade Mara's defense, although I just think Ade Mara would really struggle playing in transition with them. They're going to go with Patrick Gomba here. It's risky. I think Vesar fits pretty well with them, but I think Gomba's the guy. We're going to go with that. It's just, like I said, there's value there. The Detroit Pistons, what do they need? They need a high end creator to play with Cade. Malik Thomas is so fun. I don't know if Malik Thomas is going to be the guy that can really fill that role. I think it's too early for the Juke Harrises and the Braden Smiths of the world. Um, Tyler Tanner, he's small, but man, like he does a lot of the shit you'd want kind of a guy playing with Cade to be able to do. And I do believe in the 3-point shot. I do believe in the disruption. And I do believe that with the 23rd pick in this draft, are they going to get burned again? Let's be real. It was how many years ago did they pick Sasser? Another small dynamic offensive guard. Like this has been a style of player that has not worked out for them at all in the past. Cam Carr, I don't see where he fits on the wing. They've got a lot of guys on the wing. Like Cam Carr could be fun, but he's not a self-creator. Dalen Swain, I don't like the fit. I don't buy the jump shot totally. Again, like Tunde Yesufu, if it all clicks, like Tunde could be such a fun player, but like you can't play him with Cade. The Malik Thomas thing is just so tempting. This one's tough, man, because I don't love Malik Thomas necessarily as a player, but man, he can shoot the damn basketball. Like he can really, really shoot it. And like he is disruptive enough defensively. I think they just go with Malik Thomas. It's again like it's 23rd pick. You're really just trying to grab a guy that you believe that can play on and off ball. He's big enough as well to be able to fill both roles. Even if you had Cade on the bench, you had Dennis Jenkins on the floor. I think Dennis Jenkins and Malik Thomas can play together. So I'm going to go with Malik Thomas here and just bet on the jump shot. Again, it's not a prospect I love, but like they really need some creation. Like they really need a guy that's able to get out there and create. I think that at this point, Malik Thomas, with his ability to knock down jump shots at least, and be a second side creator for them, like I just think it makes a lot of sense. Philadelphia 76ers, they've got Joel Embiid there. They've got pieces kind of all over the place. They have a little bit of room at the 4 to be able to do stuff. It seems like they don't overly believe in Adem Bona. Like it seems like Bona, they really just like. It seems like they like him. I don't know if they love him. I think that there's an attitude there where they need some guys that just want to punch you in the mouth. I think that VJ's got a little bit of that to his game. Oubre sometimes has that, except for it seems kind of studio gangstery. I just think Merez Johnson's a great value here. I think Merez Johnson, with the Embiid injuries and stuff like that, I think he gives you an upgrade over the guys like Drummond and what they do. I think that he has the potential to be a damn good player. I know some people compared him to Isaiah Stewart, which I think is just such an unbelievable compliment. I don't know if he's as good a defender as Stewart is, but I think he's a little bit better on the offensive side than Stewart. So if you hedge those two things together, you get a comparable player to Isaiah Stewart. And I think that, and mentality wise, I think he's just another guy that just wants to compete. Merez Johnson, Philadelphia 76ers, and I love this pick for them personally. Los Angeles Lakers at 25. What do they need? They need a damn center. What do they really, really need? They need a center who can play an emotion offense. What do they really, really, really need? They need a center who can block some damn shots. If they can pass, that would be helpful. If they could space the floor, that would be great. You're not going to get all of those things from one of the centers in this draft, but you can get a couple of them. And despite the fact that, like I said, there are high-level athletic centers that have done really, really, really well with Luka Doncic. I think having a guy like a Demara and all of the things he can do with Doncic and Reeves and potentially LeBron James and some of the smaller players, he's going to struggle in transition with them sometimes. I have such a hard time with the evaluation on Mara, but having his ability to just rim run and be big and physical and block shots and take up space and pass so beautifully, I think he fits. I think he helps them. I think he plays minutes right away, and I really do think that a Demara here just makes too much damn sense. So I'm going to go a Demara at 25 to the Los Angeles Lakers. No explanation really needed on that one. The Knicks, I think they also need to go center. I think they would love some physicality on their center. Do they have Mitchell Robinson next year? We'll kind of see what that is if they're able to do it. Are they going to make big trades? There's a possibility. Do they trust their backup point guards? No. Do they trust their backup wings? No. Do they have a lot of depth in general? Not really. They kind of got 7 players they trust, and that's kind of the whole clip. Does Tyler Tanner make sense as a understudy to Brunson? Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. They can run defensive schemes together, but they can't run on the court at the same time. Henry Vesar spaces the floor. He can do some of those cat-esque things. Obviously, he's not Karl-Anthony Towns. You know what I mean? Like, that would be a ridiculous statement. But I think he does offer some stuff where you can play 5 out with Vesar on the court. And they have been very, very focused on the idea of being able to be a 5-out team, despite the fact that they have multiple players on their team that make that difficult right now. And I think he's long enough and physical enough to do some things on the defensive end that make it workable. I think that at the end of the day, like, Hans Steinbeck's not really a center. I think that's why he's sliding on my board. And people got pissed at me last time because Steinbach slid to like 27 or whatever. I just don't see what the role is for him, and that's why he's going to keep sliding. And I know people are going to get pissed in the comments section or whatever, and people are going to be pissed about, trust me, Cam Carr is one of my favorite prospects in this draft. It sucks that he hasn't been picked yet. Dalen Swain, it's just like, I believe in him less. I believe in Steinbach less. I believe in Kareem Lopez less. Amari Allen, I really, really like. Tanner, I like. There's a lot of guys here that I really genuinely like. Corey, I haven't picked yet because I just do not believe that he's going to enter the draft. I think that he's going back to college next year. So I've kind of just in my mind avoided that pick. But I think that Vesar just makes a lot of sense here with them wanting to play 5 out or 41 as much as they can. And I'm going to pick Henry Vesar to play with the New York Knicks next year. And I think the Knicks fans will probably hate that. And I'm fine with that. Now here, could they use a center that can space the floor? Yeah, absolutely. Do I like what they have in their center room in terms of how well Keita has adapted and evolved and everything else? Absolutely. Do they want guys that can shoot it and get out, like not necessarily in transition, but like can play in transition when need be, have some positional versatility, all of those things? Yeah. Is there a fit for Cam Carr on this roster? Is it a perfect fit? No. No, it's not. But do I really honestly believe that Joe Mazzulla is going to pass up on a shooter and athlete like that? I don't. And I just think Cam Carr in Boston just makes a ton of sense. Their style of play, I think, just fits really, really well with what he does. and I'm not going to overthink this. Like there is that potential of like where Hans Steinbach can make sense. Just like I said, Missoula wants to shoot 53s a game, and I just do not believe that at this point in where he's at. Like what's Steinbach's 3-point percentage this year? It's 34%. And it has. I was gonna say it has improved in this season, but it really hasn't. He's a very good offensive player. It's just like he needs the ball in his hands. I don't think it's a fit. I'm gonna pick Cam Carr here. Cam Carr, Boston Celtics, play on the wing, depth guy, high end potential because the athleticism. Minnesota Timberwolves, would they love a backup guard here? Absolutely, they would. Are they gonna lose? Potentially lose Naz Reid? Like, or not lose Naz Reid? Are they going to have to move off of a guy like Naz Reid? They've got Berenger. A guy like Steinbach doesn't make a ton of sense for them here. I think they'd want to go hunting for a guard. They've done the small guard thing. I don't know if they're interested in doing it again. I think they're probably going to re-sign Ao Dosunmu though, but I think one of their bigs gets moved at the end of the day. I think that either Randall or Reed gets moved. I think they could use another guy who can play on the wing. It's a really hard one. I think they need like a big combo forward. It'd be fun as shit to see Dame Sar there. Momchilovich there would be really, really fun as well. I don't think any of these guys would go there. Yeah, I'll say this: Jaden Bradley playing with them would be a ton of fun because I think Jaden Bradley is like a pretty damn good basketball player, and I don't think he gets the love that he deserves. I think a lot of people are actually like quite disrespectful towards him. Like when he won Conference Player of the Year, I heard a lot of people kind of shit on that, and I just don't understand it personally. Um, could it be a spot for Amari Allen? He's skinny. Like at the end of the day, he is skinny. Super fun player though. This is a tough one, man. Minnesota's just got like a really good team, and they do want that little bit of combo-y forward thing going on though. Because like Dalen Swain's sitting there, you know what? They're just gonna go upside. And if they have to move off a big, then they keep with their big man rotation. I think you can play Steinbach with most of their bigs. You can even like if you're going super young and you want to go with Berenger and him, or if you have to use Berenger as a trade piece or whatever it is. Hans Steinbach here I think is too good to pass up at this point because the upside potential. Cleveland Cavaliers. This is where Steinbach would have went. you know, um, they've got so much depth. They've just got so much friggin' depth. Could they use another ball handler? Not really. Do they need another wing? Not unless it's like a super dynamic wing. I think Keon Ellis probably goes back. I love what I've seen from Jalen Tyson. Could they use a combo forward that could do a lot of different stuff? Yeah. Could they use like a combo big who's athletic that can kind of play up and down the lineup a little bit? Yeah, they could use that too. Um, oh, you know what? Zuby would be fun here. Zuby would be fun. But you know what? I think let's not overthink this again. Dalen Swain, I think Dalen Swain can be a fun guy. You can put the ball in his hands. He can attack second side. I think he can be disruptive defensively. He's got some length. I think he checks a lot of boxes that they don't currently have at their forward positions. Like they're three, right? A lot of their threes are more static shooters. Like Strus is going to play with effort. I think Merrill's a better defender than people give him credit for. Dalen Swain, like I do worry about how on ball heavy he is now, and I wonder if he can reduce his role down to less of an on ball role. But if he can, I think it's a really fun pick, and I think there's a ton of upside in the pick. Despite me not being the highest on Dalen Swain, I think he's the best. I think he's the best fit for them in this spot. So let's go Dalen Swain at the 29th pick. People are going to be pissed about that one too. Dallas Mavericks already picked Mikael Brown up. Last pick of the first round. Do they need more center depth? Probably. Um, it's kind of Flory Badunga is sitting there, and I do love Flory. Um, what other centers we got here? Because like Zuby Ejiofor is fun as shit too. You know what? Let's not overthink it. I think Flory Badunga is a first round pick. I think that the rim finishing is fun. I think that he's a super underrated passer as well. He can do a lot of fun stuff. The obviously the defensive potential is huge. Strong kid, even though he's not 7'1". He's not one of those guys. I think giving him an option as a potential player where if they did end up having to move a Lively or a Gafford, Flory Badunga gives them that third line guy that I just think has super high potential. I love this kid. I would gladly take this kid about 10 picks higher if it made sense. But with the 30th pick, the Dallas Mavericks pick Flory Badunga and just like bank on that potential. So we've reached the end of the first round. We've got Darren Pearson to Atlanta, AJ DeBansa to the Utah Jazz, Cam Boozer, Sacramento Kings, Caleb Wilson goes to the Pacers, Wagler to the Wizards, Flemings to the Nets, Mikel Brown Jr. Goes to the Mavs, Acuff to the Grizzlies, Burries goes to the Bulls, Ament to the Milwaukee Bucks, which just sounds right to me. Lendeborg goes way higher than I have him on my board to the Blazers. Sturt's the most Warriors-based player I've ever seen. Braylon Mullins in a really agonizing pick to figure out for the Hornets. Spurs go potential because they can afford to with Senak. Oklahoma City goes potential and long-term viability with Quaintance, and then doubles down the next pick with a Swiss Army knife in Thomas Hawk. Great picks for them. Christian Anderson to the Heat, I think, is huge. The Toronto Raptors get my guy, Mo Krivos. They land Mount Krivos, and I think he's the center of the future. I think he's unbelievable. Grizzlies get Joshua Jefferson to play next to all those athletes and shooters and that big man in Zach Edey. I just think it fits too well. Koa Pete to the Hornets after they had already picked up Braylon Mullins, so they just have a solid draft picking up like high quality guys who are winning caliber players. LeBaron Philon goes to the Denver Nuggets, which just makes a ton of sense. Patrick Gamba to the Hawks, Malik Thomas to the Detroit Pistons, which I think is a bit of a reach, but I just think that they need that second help creator. They need that second side creator that can really do stuff for them, and I think he's the guy that makes sense. Merez Johnson to the 76ers, I love that. Dave Mara to the Los Angeles Lakers to give them that real legitimate rim passer who's our protector, who's also a high level passer. The New York Knicks pick Henry Vasar. I think Knicks fans will hate it, but like I said, they want to play in 50 and 41 a lot. Vasar gives them the opportunity to do that, especially if they lose Mitchell Robinson. Cam Carr to the Boston Celtics. They can't pass up that shooting. They love their shooters. The T-Wolves pick Steinbach because I assume that one of their bigs is going to get dealt, and I do view Steinbach as more of a 4 than a 5. Dalen Swain to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They just like those potential picks. And Flory Badunga to the Dallas Mavericks to cap off their draft. Whoa. Not going to lie to you, my voice is sore. You can probably hear that. I'm struggling through it. I've got my tea in hand. It's been a lot of fun. We were running just over an hour. That's the version 2 mock draft. March Madness coming up. After March Madness, we'll do another one of these, really break it down. Maybe that one will even add in some trades and do some shit like that and make it a longer podcast. Maybe I'll even see if I can get a co-host for that one and do this together. But it's been fun. I hope that everybody has a great rest of their day, and go check out the TikTok. Go check out my Instagram. It's all the same name, Cheap Seats 73, and I appreciate the support and the follow. I'm going to try to figure out how to extract just audio so I can put this up on podcast apps, because I'm going to start putting up podcast app available things as well. So still figuring out how to video edit and audio edit and everything else. So I apologize. The quality will get better, but I think the product's improving. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and go watch some hoops.